This is a small world, huh? But we're gonna keep all of that. We're keeping all of that. This universe seems to be shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. In an earlier conversation I had with Erin and Christy with the Black CannaBiz conference, I said, "Man, y'all should get with my girl. She works with the cannabis nurses. And I said, they know as the holistic gypsy. That's my seed friend. That's my buddy." And bam, here you go, pop it up on my screen. How are you?
I'm fine. Guess what?
What's that?
They finally grew. I'm letting
Wait,
them dry.
what grew?
My loofahs. You remember you sent me
Oh
some loofahs?
yeah. Man, I had so many loofahs, they done gone crazy. And you know what? I gave several different people some seeds or seedlings that are producing right now. It's harvest time.
Yeah.
But that's very interesting because we could parlay that conversation right into this one. The upcoming Black CannaBiz Conference and Expo will be happening at the Convention Center in New Orleans, November 18th through the 20th. You are an advisory board member of the Cannabis Nurses of Color. And I'm sure that many of your organization members will be in participation with this upcoming event. What do you guys do exactly? Because, I mean, I could read the title, obviously, but what is it specifically that you guys do?
So it's two things that we focus on. First, it's creating a space that patients can have safe access to cannabis. A lot of us aren't in Louisiana. Like me and Ivy, we're in Louisiana, but some of the nurses are in legal states, so they're able to do a lot more. But wherever we are, we try to help patients navigate through the cannabis space, as well as have access, look for affordable options, as well as like their insurance. A lot of people may not realize, but some insurances even pay for medical marijuana. So, we try to help patients who want to know more about that, as well as provide a space for Black and brown nurses to be able to comfortably talk about cannabis. This is something that we know as Black and brown people can be an uncomfortable subject. There is a stigma around it. There is a fear around it, talking openly just because of the history. So at Cannabis Nurses of Color, what we do is we do create that space and allow nurses to ask questions and to have those open conversations that we can't necessarily have, with everybody. And, still
So
be
you're obviously dealing with this on a daily or regular basis.
yeah.
And it is not legal for recreational use in Louisiana, but it has been approved for medicinal purposes, correct?
Yes, so it has been approved medicinally. And also last year, a new bill passed that kind of opened it up more for people to have more access. At first, it was like 7 to 9 approved diagnoses that a patient will qualify for medical cannabis, but now it's really to the medical doctor's discretion, depending on what's going on with you. So maybe something necessarily wasn't on the list at first, but you still would have benefited from cannabis. But now that new bill has opened it up that a lot more people can qualify.
Now, you said it's at the discretion of the doctors, correct?
Mm-hmm.
How liberal or conservative are they in uh, prescribing medicinal cannabis to people?
So I do consults, and I will be honest, living in Louisiana, they are very conservative, those who are not necessarily a cannabis doctor,
Right.
because they'll open it up that any medical licensed doctor can actually recommend. But from a lot of consults I've done, a lot of people tell me, they're like, well, my doctor says no. My doctor is totally against it. So even though they're able to do it, a lot of them are still against it.
So is it still like the stigma of cannabis being a gateway drug that has maybe tainted the views of a lot of these professionals?
I definitely think that's what it is. I really believe, a lot of people haven't accepted cannabis as medicine. They really don't believe the data that is behind it, even though there's a lot of data, there's a lot of research that's been done. Apparently, Louisiana has had a form of a medical marijuana program since 1978. that people weren't even aware of. I mean, I learned something new every day, you know. So I mean, I'm just learning that as well, that it was some type of program in place that, I mean, they don't talk about it, you know, and it's because of that thinking, oh, cannabis is a drug.
Now, you know, it's very interesting that we're in Louisiana, and you know, we're kind of at the tail end of this because it's getting approved in a number of other states around the country as we speak. But I was watching I think it was a Louis Armstrong documentary, and a lot of the weed laws that were implemented were actually because of him.
Yes, yes.
The folks that were the ruling majority of the country uh, felt as if Louis Armstrong and this this new magical jazz music
You're
was
right.
influencing the youth of the country to be savages, and they needed to stop all of this weed and marijuana smoking that was coming in from the Caribbean. And Louis Armstrong, he would even have it on a number of his riders that he needed to have some weed before his concerts. So it's very interesting that a lot of that started here, and we are
Right.
still feeling the remnants of those decisions so many years later. But with that being said, don't forget the Black CannaBiz Conference and Expo coming up November 18th through the 20th in New Orleans at the Morial Convention Center. And just real quickly, if folks wanted to get more information about the role that cannabis nurses of color has, and maybe even get with you for more information or consultation, where can they find this info?
So you can find Cannabis Nurses of Color on Facebook. We actually have a Facebook page as well as a Facebook group. The Facebook group is private, so you will have to answer questions before joining, you know, just to verify that you are a nurse. Cannabis Nurses of Color can also be found on Instagram at Canna Nurses CNOC, and I can be found on Instagram as well as at the like DA420 Nurse.
Okay, gotcha. Don't forget, if anybody else wants to get information about the upcoming conference, you can go to blackcannaconference.com for registrations. There's also vendor space still available, and there'll be a listing of a number of the various panels and activities that'll be going on at the upcoming Black CannaBiz Conference and Expo. Shonda Broom, the holistic gypsy, and the advisory board member that joined us today from the Cannabis Nurses of Color. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.